That's what marketing is about, really. It's about building trusting relationships. It's also about knowing with horses and clients when to walk away. We as humans make about 95% of our decisions emotionally. When you provide a service, when you're building up trust, you cannot sell trust through Instagram Reels or Facebook. When you know which is your one strategy, you can then use the associated language to attract the clients that you want.
Hello and welcome to the Success Differently podcast. My name is Michelle Sorgaroli and I am your host today, and we're being joined by our special guest, Chantal Cornelius. Now, Chantal she's the founder of Appletree Marketing Consultancy in the year 2000. And since that time, she has been a marketing mentor, an international speaker, and also has written the book StandOut Strategies just in 2024. So got some exciting news there. Chantal's journey started doing a Bachelor of Science in Animal Science at the University of Nottingham. So I'm curious about how we went from science to marketing. We're going to be talking about that. But apparently she spent more time climbing mountains and riding horses than she did necessarily on her coursework. Although apparently you still had honors there, an honors degree. So finally, in our spare time today, Chantal might be found fostering kittens, playing with them and supporting them to integrate safely into new homes. Chantal, it is an absolute delight to welcome you today, and I'm very much looking forward to our conversation. Thanks for joining us.
Me too, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I alluded to, we went from science to marketing, climbing trees and playing piano and all sorts of good stuff to where we are today.
Yeah, it was, it was a very roundabout way that got me into marketing. I think I wanted to do more with animals when I was younger. So I went to university and learned about animal production and animal physiology. And I'm still fascinated by the science of all of that. But I got about 2/3 of the way through a 3-year degree and realized that it probably wasn't where I really wanted to go. And I did, in my final year, spend more time riding horses. I had various horses that I exercised for people, and I just went off and did them. But yes, I still got my honours degree. But when I left university, I decided actually to go and work with horses for a year. A friend of mine had done it, and I thought, I'll go and do that. I'll get it out of my system. I'll figure out what to do with myself and my life. And it didn't quite work out that way, because 1 year turned into 3. And I just kept bouncing from one job to the next, and still not really knowing where I was going. And then I remember sitting down 1 year at New Year with some friends, and I'd had to save up days off in order to go away for a couple of days between Christmas and New Year. And so I'd worked some crazy hours and some long weeks and months in order to get enough time off to then have it off. And I was sitting there with a friend going, you know what, I hate it. You lot have all got proper jobs and you're earning money, and you're not being kicked and bitten and trodden on by other people's horses every day. She said, well, why don't you quit? And I hadn't even thought about it. So I went back to work a few days later and said to my boss, Happy New Year, I'm leaving. And I gave her a month's notice, and I left.
Isn't that funny how it took someone else to introduce a new idea that you hadn't even considered?
No. It might have been in the back of my mind at some point, but I'd probably thought, well, I don't know what else I'm going to do, so I'll stay where I am. And when I left, I still didn't know what I was going to do, but I started looking for office jobs. I was living near Oxford in the UK, big city, lots of jobs. But I come out of university in 1993, barely having touched a computer. Now, the youngsters who are listening to this or watching this will think this is very amusing. I'd used something called a word processor, which had Word on it, but Microsoft Word wasn't around. I'd used that to type up my thesis, my dissertation. But I had no other computer skills, and all the jobs, even the basic ones, wanted computer skills. So my mum lent me some money because I was penniless, having worked with horses for 3 years. And I went to do a computer training course in Oxford that was specifically designed for graduates like me who had no
Oh,
ability. I learned to touch type, I learned to do Word and Excel and Microsoft Access and various other programs. And while I was there at the college doing my training, I started doing some temping for them, and I helped out with some of the courses they were running. I wrote press releases, I wrote posters to advertise the place. And one day the boss came to me, and he ran a private business college in Oxford. And he came up to me one day and he said, "Would you like a full-time job as my marketing manager?" And I remember looking at him going, what's marketing? Didn't even really know, it hadn't crossed my mind at all. I was still thinking, I just need to get some more training and go and get a temping job. And he said, marketing is what you've been doing. You've been writing press releases. You've been helping me promote the centre. Come and do that for me at college. And he offered me a full-time job on a decent salary with decent holiday, very important. And he said, I'll train you. And he did. And one of the
amazing.
courses at the college was a part-time marketing diploma. He put me through it. And that's how I got into marketing. And I remember phoning my mum saying, "Mum, I've got a job." And she was like, "Oh, thank goodness for that. Finally. My daughter is," I was always slightly the black sheep of the family, the
Oh,
rebellious one. My next sister up in the line will be laughing hysterically because I wasn't just, I was very rebellious and very hideous for a long time as a teenager. So mum was very relieved when I told her I had a proper job.
isn't
So
that funny again? What I'm hearing is this man who offered you the full-time job, he saw a talent in you that you hadn't yet yourself even recognized or realized. He
yeah.
saw what you'd been doing. He saw your skills and talents. And that's so often the case, isn't it? Where others might see who we are and what we can do well before we ourselves see that.
Yeah, definitely. And I was also incredibly lucky because he could have completely ignored that. He didn't have a
Hmm.
marketing manager at the time, but he obviously decided he wanted somebody and went, "Oh, actually, she's quite good at this." And because I needed a job, I went, "Okay,"
Yeah.
because I'm also the sort of person who I'm open to opportunities. I didn't sit there and say, "Well, I don't know what marketing is." And no, actually, I think I'd rather wait and look around. I just went, "Yeah, great, let's do it."
Right. Yeah. So you took the opportunity and said, sure, I'll
Yeah.
try this. And
Yeah.
in some way, being the rebellious person that you have claimed to be, perhaps you were rebelling against your degree and your animal, your BSc. It's
Possibly,
entirely
yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Curious there. So as you look back on just coming into that position, I
Mm.
would imagine, I'm not a horse person, but I would imagine having worked with horses for 3 years that you probably learned a thing or two about marketing and about how to bring how that's influenced your world today and the work that you do. Is there anything that you would draw from those years that?
Yes, definitely. Not so much on the marketing front. One of my big lessons was how not to treat staff because I got treated very badly. And I think people in the equestrian industry still do get treated badly. And a long time ago, I swore I would never treat anybody else like in the way that I was treated by some
Mm,
of the people I work for. But the big thing that I learned is actually about public speaking, because when you're teaching people, I did a lot of teaching and I trained to be a riding instructor as part of those 3 years. When you're teaching people to ride, you are quite often standing in the middle of an arena and there are people walking, trotting, cantering around you on horses, and you're telling them what to do. So you've got to have a level of being able to project your voice. We did a lot of work looking at how to plan lessons and then how to deliver them. So you can't just rock up and go, okay, what am I going to teach you today? Especially if you want to get trained and do the exams,
mhm.
you learn how to plan lessons. You learn how to cope when it goes wrong, when somebody falls off
Mm,
a horse and is lying on their back crying, or actually saying, "I think I need an ambulance." So dealing with all of that. But there's a lot around leadership as well. Like, hello,
mm,
I'm in the middle. You're paying to be here, which means I have to do a good job. But because you're paying, you actually see me as the expert. And there were times
right.
when I was thinking, I'm in my early 20s. I've been teaching for 6 months. They all think I know what the heck I'm talking about. So I better put that image across. So really helps with things like confidence of get in there and get on and do it. So it also reminded me why I really never wanted children. I've often got to do the kids' classes, and some of the kids are fun because actually they bounce when they fall off, and you have to dust them off and chuck them back on again. But it did remind me of like, no, I'm giving these children back at the end of the afternoon. Go back to your parents. I've had all I can with you. Take it home.
So yeah, you touched on something, being the expert in your early 20s after 6 months of, being at it. How did you navigate that? As you were learning to stand in that sense of confidence, if you will, and at the same time thinking, I've been at this for 6 months. This is a very common occurrence for a lot of people, I think, right? Where we feel, oh, I don't feel like the expert here.
Yeah.
How was that?
Two ways of dealing with it. Fake it until you make it. And I've used that all the way through all of my careers, especially when I then started up the business. There was a lot of that going on. But having an attitude of, okay, I know what I'm doing, because I knew if I stood in the middle of the arena and went, would you mind trotting now, please? They wouldn't do it. They'd go, hang on, why are we paying you? Whereas if I'd say, right, ride forwards into trot, the way you present yourself is definitely there. And the other area is, and I'm still doing this, constant learning, always looking for, right, how can I do this better? I'm still doing this however many years on, particularly with my speaking. I've gone back to Toastmasters. I've rejoined Toastmasters, which I know is international. I was a member a long, long time ago when I first set up the business. I've recently joined a local group, and I'm loving it because it's a way for me to, every 2 weeks, rock up and look at, okay, what can I learn? What more can I learn? How can I do this better? And so with the riding and then the instructing, I was being trained as an instructor, which means you're being trained to become a better rider because you have to be able to ride to a certain level to be able to teach it. I was learning a lot more about managing horses and also managing equestrian facilities, and then also learning how to teach. Because like I said, you can't just turn up and go, okay, I'm going to teach you to jump. You have to learn how to teach. So for me, I mean, that's one of the things I loved about those 3 years was constant learning. And I've been learning ever since. I'm interested in learning all sorts, because for me it's a constant journey to develop and become better at whatever it is, whether it's riding a horse, skiing, growing vegetables, running a marketing company, always looking for ways to improve, definitely.
Yeah, and you have lots of different prongs. I think that's interesting, just knowing a little bit about your bio. What I've seen is, you've already alluded to, you have so many different areas of interest, so many things, whether it's, piano, art, climbing mountains, riding horses, fostering kittens, what have you. And I think in a previous conversation, you just came back not long ago from South Africa, where you were speaking and you used puppets.
Yes.
In your presentation. And I think, was that a first time, or I can't remember.
That was the second time. Don't go away, viewers.
Okay.
Hang on. Because I actually have 4 of them here.
Oh, beautiful. So puppets on stage with you.
Puppets coming. I had 5 of them with me in South Africa. I had 3 of them with me I spoke at a conference in France a couple of months ago, and I was speaking English to a French audience. If you're watching, there is now a monkey, a baboon on screen.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're famous too. Yeah, he's very cheeky. He talks to me. So I wanted a way of making the talk more visual. So I had puppets, and I have this gorgeous cat chap who is a very furry cat, ginger cat. I also have a giraffe here, and I have a sheepdog. There's also an alligator. He's in the house. But that was just me thinking, okay, can I do something that's a bit different and a bit visual? And I've had to learn how to do it, because the first time here's the sheepdog of significance, he's very scruffy. The first time I had them on stage, I was speaking and they were still doing actions, but you can't hear them talk. I've had to learn that, that's what I'm telling her. Yeah. They talk to me.
Right.
And then I relay that. And I'm still, you're very cute.
You're humanizing your problem, which is beautiful. So, fast forward. So you got this
Yeah.
job in marketing,
Yes.
and didn't know what marketing was at the time, went through a bit of training, and then not long after, because this timeline is starting to crunch up against the year 2000 when you
Yeah.
founded Appletree, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what happened between when you got this job as a marketing manager, not knowing what one was,
Mhm.
to not very long after starting Appletree?
It was 5 years, about 5 years. I worked for the first company and was then actually headhunted by another company in Oxford, a bigger training company, which was my absolute dream job. And I went to work for them. And sadly, after 11 months, they made me redundant.
Oh.
And I was absolutely gutted because I was just really getting going. But they decided they couldn't, or they decided they
Mm,
didn't need marketing anymore.
mm,
Big mistake because the company folded not long afterwards. Anyway, having been
mhm,
chucked out of there, I then had to find another job and I really struggled. And I ended up taking a job with a printing firm in Oxford, another very old, well-established firm, company who didn't really understand marketing. And I was there for about 18 months, but I don't think they didn't really need me. They didn't really want me. My boss went off sick for 3 months, and nobody noticed that I was
mm,
sitting there twiddling my thumbs with nothing really to do. When I'd been made redundant, a couple of my friends had said, "Why don't you go and set up your own business?" And at the
mm,
time, I just didn't feel ready. I'd only been doing marketing for about 3 years at that time. But then after 18 months, 2 years with this next company of not getting anywhere at all, that was the point I thought, right, okay, now I'm ready. I feel brave enough to go and set up on my own. And I spent a couple of months taking days off and going doing courses on how to run a business and sitting at my computer while my boss was off sick and I was downloading data from the internet and building a mailing list and going and talking to graphic designers and having my logo designed and getting ready to set the business up. So poor chap, the day he came back to work, I gave him my letter of resignation and I was
mm.
gone in a month. So yeah, it was about 5 years, but it,
Okay.
it was that it was like nobody appreciates me. I know I could do so much more for other businesses. Who my plan was to work actually as a freelance copywriter, so be writing marketing material
Okay.
because I've always loved writing. My plan was to do that for small local businesses, and I thought if I can work for however many small businesses,
Hmm.
help them with their marketing, that will be much more fulfilling than working for one business that doesn't actually really want me here. So
Right.
when
Isn't that interesting? There's a piece there around rewarding work and feeling fulfilled. And that was a big driver for you, I'm hearing,
oh
in,
you yeah,
feeling like my work matters and my contributions are valuable. And that's
definitely.
such an important part of any journey for a
Mhm.
human, and so many people feel that way. So kudos to you for recognizing that and taking those steps.
Sure.
Um, when when you started Appletree, then you were
Mm.
looking at copywriting, and I'm curious about, how did you go from marketing to where you're really standing on the standout principles today, these
Mm.
standout principles. And I'm wondering if you could share what they are and
Yeah,
perhaps give us a story about how they came to be.
yeah, definitely. I call them standout strategies, and they came about. How did they come about? I ended up working with an awful lot of coaches and consultants. I think it's because the companies I worked for before I set up my business were all service businesses. So never products
Mm,
or widgets, never food, never sort of consumables, always services that require a lot of trust and connection for
mhm,
people to buy them.
mhm,
I was focusing on working with service businesses. And about 10 years ago, so 2015, I started noticing that when I said to coaches, what makes you different? I'd written a book about marketing planning, and the first section of that book is looking at, okay, where are you now in your business before you decide where you're going to go? And as part of where are you now, what makes you different? And so many coaches were saying to me phrases like, I help people get from where they are to where they want to be. And that's what makes me different. And I said, I get that you get them from A to B, but that doesn't make you different, because that's what all coaches do. And because of that, I then started digging and investigating and researching and reading and going round and round and round. And I realized that what happens is we as humans make about 95% of our decisions emotionally, irrationally, subconsciously. Quite often through the gut and the heart. You get a gut feeling about whether or not you want to work with somebody, or you get a warm fuzzy feeling in your heart and you go, yeah, I really want to work with this person, and you quite often don't even know why. Or I really want to buy this puppet, or I want to book this holiday, don't know why. It's all subconscious. The brain then eventually gets involved with the final 5% and the rational side and goes, yes, you can buy that and you can take that course because XYZ. But we do it all emotionally. That was the first bit. Okay, we make emotional decisions, which means that in marketing, somebody somewhere is making a decision based on their emotion and based subconsciously about whether or not to work with someone. What I then did was start looking at the emotions involved, and that led me to identify 5 different strategies. And each one, through the research, what I've done is I've associated language with each of the 5. So that when you know which is your one strategy, because each of us has one, sometimes 2, but predominantly we have one strategy. When you know what it is, you can then use the associated language in your marketing and your sales and your customer service to attract the clients that you want. And it's doing it in a very gentle, subconscious way. It's not submersive or manipulative. But if I use the language that I know my potential clients are looking for and want to feel, they go, oh, well, I want that. Hurrah, let's work together. It just makes marketing so much easier.
So what is it that lights you up about this idea?
Hard question. What lights me up? Apart from the fact that I get to play with puppets, they're all dying to tell you what their strategies are, because they are all associated with the strategies too. I've taken so many clients and people through the process of helping them identify which is the one strategy to use. And what I love is when somebody says, in fact, somebody said it to me recently. She said, I wish I'd known this 20 years ago. I could have saved so much time and money. She said, oh, I've tried this and this and this. And I see it a lot at the moment with everybody filling up their time with social media, thinking if I promote myself on social media, somebody somewhere will find me. You don't need to do it. So it's watching the light bulbs go off when somebody says, oh, now I get it. Oh, that makes a difference. Oh, I can work with this. Because it is actually really, it's about simplifying marketing. It's about listening to what our clients want and showing them how we can deliver what they want. If what we want to deliver is not what they want, we part company. But if what they want is what we want to deliver, hooray, job done.
Right, exactly. Well, as you know, my focus is differentiation. And so we speak a lot of similar language here. What makes you different? I think it's curious because your approach to differentiation is very similar and we're nuanced differently, which I think is really curious. The thing what I'm hearing from you, and I'm just trying to see where the thread is, because yours has come at the angle, what makes you different, and how do you, in your language, how do you stand out, right, from competitors? And services businesses, it's impossible. Services businesses, we always hear that it's impossible to differentiate services because everybody's doing the same thing and everybody's selling the same thing and everybody's saying the same thing. And of course, you and I know that that's not true, that it is very possible to stand out in services, but it feels like it's not. And yours, I love this, Chantal, because you're really focused on emotions. And what I'm curious about is, where did the emotional piece come from? Where did this interest in connecting emotions and building trust, where did that start for you in your journey?
the building trust element has always been there, because I've always known that when you're buying a service, you can't see it. You can't pick it up and compare it. You can't say, well, it's black and white and fluffy and looks like a bit like a dog, or it's ginger and white, looks a bit like a cat. You can't do that with services because they're different.
Right.
Go at you two. So with services, I've got somebody coming around to do some decorating. My sister and I own the house next door. We're Airbnb-ing it. We've actually just had our first booking in today. Yay.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's not even ready. So I said to people I know locally, who do you recommend? I need somebody to come in and decorate the house and do the painting. And lots of people recommended Arthur. So Arthur is doing the painting, and I know, because he's been recommended to me by other people, I know I can trust him. I can give him the key, say, get on with it, just crack on it and do the decorating. I could have gone onto the internet. I could have gone in the olden days to Yellow Pages, but I would rather buy from somebody who comes recommended. So that's the trust piece, and that's always been there. The emotions, I think in the early days of all of this, I went to a workshop where somebody was talking about, I think she called them emotional USPs, so unique selling propositions. But she was talking about emotional USPs, and that kind of got me interested in it. And I then started digging into it even more and doing more of the reading, and that's where I discovered that the research done by quite a few Americans shows that it's 95% of our decisions are made emotionally. So I think that's where it came from, and it just built from there. So.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you on terms of it is about trust and connection. The idea of standing out, I think it's curious, because when we're asking a service, what is it about you that makes you different, or what allows you to stand out? And to your point, I'm getting my, coaches are saying I get my clients from A to B, and that's what makes me different. And as you and I know, we hear the same thing over and over and over again. Of course, when you're working in your own little bubble, you don't hear that. You don't know what your competitors or what your colleagues or peers are saying. So we end up thinking that what we're saying is unique, and not necessarily so. When you're helping a client move from this place of being commoditized and saying the same thing, what is it that you're most interested in exploring with them?
I think it's taking them through the test that I created that's on my website. Okay. When I talk to businesses, I don't know how, but I can usually tell which of the 5 strategies is going to be the best one for them. I did it this morning at a networking event. I was chatting to somebody and my brain was going, it's this one, it's this one. Actually, it was probably my gut that was going, it's this one. So I can tell quite easily what it is for most people. But people kept saying to me, well, how do I find out? So we created a test, and I did a load more research and looked at what the emotions, what the words and the phrases were that needed to go with each one. So the test is free. It's on my website. So I get people to do the test. We look at the numbers, we run it through a clever bit of software that my partner developed for me here, which crunches numbers and comes out with some data that says, this is the best strategy for you of the 5, and here's why, and here's the words that you chose. So that bit is fabulous, because being able to take somebody through it, I do this in workshops as well. I get people to go to the website, take the test. I then look at their results. I quite often, if I'm running a workshop, I don't send them the results. I then go and do the workshop, and I talk through the 5 strategies, and I get them to say which one they think is theirs. And then I go, haha, I was right. Here are your results. And generally, they are right. Sometimes they're not. And sometimes it's fascinating. I did this recently at a workshop where there was a husband and wife team, and they run an opticians. They run 2. One of them is high street, very standard, very go in, get your eyes tested, buy some new glasses. The other one is boutique, high-end, really expensive designer glasses, and they're wanting to charge a lot more. What we worked out was that for the second one, they were trying to use the first they were trying to use one strategy for both, and it was not working because they were two very different businesses. So taking them through the process and having them go, oh, okay, so for this one, we need to do this type of marketing and use this language. All of a sudden, it was like, woohoo, light bulb moments, and they were really energized by that. So, did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Have I gone off track?
No, you're good.
I'm excited about that.
No, you're good. You know what? I just keep coming back to, and I don't know why. I'm just so curious about it. I keep coming back to your time with horses. And I said earlier, I'm not a horse person because I'm deathly allergic to them, but I would love to be a horse person if I could be. But I understand that there's a deep connection. My understanding is that there's a deep connection between especially women, and their horses, women and people and their horse. There's a very deep emotional bond, a deep connection around trust. And this is your thing, is trust and connection, right?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there was ever a time in that time when you were with horses that has somehow threaded through. I feel like there must be lessons and things that you learned in working with horses and being with horses that allowed you to tap into this different level of emotion and connection.
Quite possibly, and I've never actually thought about it that way. That's fascinating. I'm going to have to write another book. But thank you. You are absolutely right, Michelle, because to be able to ride a horse well, I think you have to have an emotional connection with them. You have to understand that horse. Now, I'm not a huge fan of horse racing at all. And I know that there are jockeys who are brilliant at what they do. And there'll be times where they've never ridden a horse before and they're chucked onto the back of it. And the trainer says, do this, this, and this, and off you go. That, to me, there's no connection. There's no partnership there. I remember one of my sisters came to watch me ride at an event once. I was doing dressage. And she said to me afterwards, you and your horse, Mia, have a real partnership. And I said, what do you mean by that? Because people had said that to me a lot. And she said, I can't see you move. So I'm sitting on my horse and I'm asking her to trot a 20-meter circle and then go into canter or walk, whatever. And Lucy said, I can't see you move. I don't know I don't know how you're instructing her. I've done a lot of training with a group who are called Ride With Your Mind, and Mary Wanless, who's a trainer over here, but she does a lot in the US as well. And it's going to sound a little bit woo-woo, but a lot of it is about think what you want the horse to do, and your body will then tell the horse what you want it to do. Now, horses have minds and wills of their own. We can't make them do anything. If you're sitting on half a ton of animal, you can't make it do anything. And it's the same with our clients. Oh, here's a thing, yes. So we can't, us humans, we can't make anybody feel anything. I can't make you feel happy. I can do something where you might decide to feel happy, like you're smiling. I'm guessing you're happy. I didn't make you do that. You decided. It's the same with a horse. You can't, there's the phrase of you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. It's very true. If a horse doesn't want to do something, it darn well ain't going to do it. And there are fabulous people around the world like Monty Roberts in the States and I can't believe I've forgotten her name. She's going to kill me. Fabulous trainers over in this country who I've done some work with who will actually help you understand your horse more and help. There are people who run courses with executives in suits and horse, and you're asked to move the horse without touching it. And it's about body language and understanding and emotion. I get really nervous when I'm competing, and I haven't actually competed for 3 or 4 years for various reasons. Literally 10 days before this recording, I was given a new horse. Very, very lucky. But I'd already been riding her, and her owners decided not to keep her. And she said, please, would you have my horse? So in 3 days' time, we're doing our first dressage competition. But it's been fascinating watching the relationship. I'm going to use the word blossom because the relationship is blossoming with me and Sky. Lovely. The first time I rode her on my own, I nearly fell off and I got really nervous. And it's taken a few months to get to the point. I had a previous horse where it went badly wrong and I did come off her and it hurt a lot. And this horse is completely different, but I have to keep thinking, this is Sky. This isn't Maisie. This is Sky.
Right.
And since Helen has gifted her to me, I've put more focus into training with her. A month ago, if I went out into her paddock, really difficult to catch her. She would canter off to the other end of the field. She'd turn her back towards me. Now I go over there, she walks towards me. It's magical. It's just heaven. And I'm going to go and ride her later. And I know that when I finish riding, she'll stand there and then she'll want to cuddle. And she didn't want that a couple of months ago. And she and I have more of a bond than she and Helen had. And she's much more chilled and settled.
Isn't that?
I've still got the nerves. I can feel the nerves building up already. It's Wednesday and I'm competing on Saturday.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
have to do a lot to really I've gone off on a waffle and off track again. But yes, horses have taught me so much over the years, very definitely.
Well, I'm hearing it's just such a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful metaphor for, your relationship with your horse and what the horse represents being when we're in marketing, if we translate that whole journey over, what I'm hearing is the horse, if I'm just play with me here, because I'm just having fun. The horse feels like the horse would represent the buyer to whom we're marketing, right? We can't make the horse do anything.
Yeah.
And there's so much trust and connection required. Like you said, when you first got on, you almost fell off. And as a marketer, when we're working with clients, sometimes we start working with that client and we stumble and we're thinking, oh my goodness, am I in the wrong place? Am I on the wrong horse? Right. And sometimes we are on the wrong horse and sometimes we're not. And it just takes a moment to build that foundation to coming where you are now, where the horse is coming to you. So we've got, as a marketer, as working with our clients who have clients.
Yes.
There's a metaphor there that feels so consistent with what you do now.
Yeah. Wow. I'm really glad we're recording this because I need to listen back to this. You're absolutely right, because my previous horse, who I bought on a whim, if I use the metaphor, she was not the right strategy for me. I was because there are the 5, and I think Sky is the right strategy for me, whereas Maisie wasn't. And I think I was trying to mold myself to the strategy that Maisie needs. I sold Maisie to somebody way younger than me, who's much braver, who just wants to gallop about all over the countryside and leap over big fences and go for that strategy. And Maisie's loving it, whereas I'm going for a much more gentle approach, which suits Sky. So and if they were if they were clients, it was like when I was first looking into these strategies, I thought that my business was going in one direction, which is the strategy I call growth of the 5. But actually my clients wanted what I call certainty. And I had to stop myself doing the growth work because they wanted the certainty. And it's a bit like Sky and Maisie. I was thinking, I'm going growth, and I bought Maisie. Big mistake, because that's not me. I now have Sky, and she's like, no, just give me certainty. That's fine. We're good with that. So yeah, wow.
And it suits you. This is, really talking about, I do this in my work. I talk about matching, as I know you do as well, right? Matching. You were not well matched to Maisie, but you're very well matched to Sky.
Yeah.
And so your styles and what you want and the way you engage and your energy and all of those things come together to create this beautiful partnership or synergy that creates this spectacular outcome.
Yeah. And I'm feeling with her already the partnership, which I had Maisie for 1.5 years and I never had that partnership, and I've got it much more quickly with Sky. And I'm still not quite sure why, but it's working. So all I have to do now is take her to the competition on Saturday and go, it's fine. I'm not really that nervous. Let's get round this.
Yeah. Well, you've got a good partner.
Yes.
Right? We when we're working with clients where it works, where there's natural synergies, this is part of what makes us different. And interestingly, like I think differentiation in the sense of this conversation, we shine when we're well matched with our client. Absolutely. And vice versa.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So differentiation, what makes you different? I think uniquely individually, yes, we can be different, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be valuable. As Maisie and you didn't work, right? It doesn't
Yes.
necessarily mean we're going to be valuable to each other. It just means that, okay, this is my style. Does
Yeah.
your style connect
Yeah.
with my style in such a way that we can create value together?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also about knowing with horses and clients when to walk away.
Yeah.
As I was lying on my back in the middle of the field thinking, ow, that hurt, with my partner racing over to me going,
Yeah.
are you okay? And I said, leave me alone, go and check the horse. I should have twigged then that it was time to sell Maisie. I think that probably was the final
Isn't
thing.
that interesting?
I need
Yeah.
to sell her. But it's also the same of, okay, this client isn't working out. I need to walk away because
Before it hurts.
yeah. Because I'm so clear on what strategy works for me and my business, I now don't even take on clients. If they come and they go, I'm the giraffe of growth, you are the giraffe of growth, yes. I am not the marketing consultant for you.
Right.
I am the crocodile of certainty. I haven't got Croc with me, he's somewhere else. But yeah, I don't even take on clients who are going, yeah, we want giraffe, we want growth. I'm like, no, it's not me. So walk away. So
Yeah.
and I was with Sky, I was quite tentative because she was staying with me and I was helping look after her. And I'd started riding and I wasn't quite sure. It wasn't until Helen actually said, okay, if you want her, she's yours. And you never put a gift horse in the mouth. Giraffe, maybe, not horse. It wasn't until she actually said, okay, she's yours. I went, right, okay, let's see where this is going. And that's it since then. Yeah, it's magical. It's just literally in the last 10 days that she's been officially mine, that it's the dynamic has changed. But I think she just feels a lot more settled as well, which is
It's true, though. Isn't it true that our clients, when they feel a connection, they are more settled?
yeah.
And probably, as I'm sure you see, they are more courageous. They're more willing to try things because the partnership feels stable.
Yes.
It's that you can trust the partnership,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. When I say, come on, let's try this, they go, okay. Or when I say, don't do that because that's a waste of money, they go, okay, yeah, we trust you.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd love for you to share with us, as we're talking about this metaphor, I'd love for you to share with us a story about a client like Sky, where you've seen great success, perhaps have gone into a competition and seen some great results because of the partnership.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I'm not sure in terms of partnership, but I do have an example of a client who I really love working with,
Great.
who completely transformed her marketing when she understood the strategy to use. So Tara is a coach and she'd been ticking along doing okay, was never really sure why clients came to her. So we went through the process. She did the test and her strategy came up as growth. Yay, giraffe of growth. And we started looking at the language that is associated with growth. So if growth is your strategy, clients come to you because they want to either grow personally or professionally, quite often both. They're looking for somebody who can motivate and inspire them. They're looking to be energized. They're optimistic. They're looking for somebody who's optimistic and supportive and a cheerleader. And Tara had been kind of all over the place with her marketing until that point, and some of it had worked and some hadn't. We did the process. She was like, "Yep, okay, I get it. It's growth." Went off to do some of her marketing. Came back for one of her mentoring sessions a month later and said, "It's still not working. I'm talking about growth, but it's not quite working." What I realized is she was using the word growth. She was saying to her potential clients, "If you want to grow, come and work with me." What I have to remind people of is that when we're talking to potential clients about how they want to feel, the name of the strategy doesn't actually help.
Right.
So there's certainty, connection, contribution, growth, significance. That doesn't matter. So Tara was saying, "Oh, you want growth? Great, come and work with me and get growth." And they were going, "I don't understand."
Yeah.
So we then changed the language, and there's a set of language that goes with each strategy. And as soon as she started weaving the correct language in, it started to work. because that language is about being inspired, empowered, motivated. Tara is running workshops and retreats, and she's taking people canoeing in Norway. And all she has to do is put a date out in her newsletter, and it pretty much fills up overnight because people go, I want that.
There you go.
And then they go, I don't know why I want it, but I do. And that's the beauty of how this works. So I think Tara now has, through this work, she now has a partnership with her clients where they trust her and they just go, yep, if you're doing it, I'm in. And she keeps saying to me every now and then, I don't know why it's working. And I just say, carry on using this language. But it's not just about using the language in your marketing. It's about then actually delivering it. So when you go on one of Tara's workshops or retreats, she delivers the growth strategy. So everything she does, whether you're sitting around a campfire or you're doing some yoga or you're talking about nutrition or you're meditating, all of it is about inspiring, empowering, growing personally. So it's, and this is the other thing I love about this work, is it goes through marketing, sales, customer service, delivery. If you promote something on one strategy and deliver on another, it doesn't work, you get a mismatch. But when you go growth, all the way through, clients go, yay, growth, that's what I want.
Well, there's that consistent thread, right? In services, especially. And that's part of that is a differentiator. If you have a consistent thread through everything, then there's integrity that people can trust and connect with, right? So it allows for that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much. Okay. So final question as we're winding up.
Yeah.
If you were to advise someone today who is just starting their career in marketing, as you were 25 or 30 years ago, what advice might you give them, your younger self, perhaps?
Oh, that's a fabulous question. I don't think I've been asked that one before. That's really cool. What advice would I give them? I would say, if somebody's thinking about setting up their own business, I would say, do it. You'll love it and hate it, but you'll mostly love it. If somebody is just starting out in marketing, I think I would be quite controversial and say, do not spend too much time with social media. There are, apart from LinkedIn, there are still so many fads out there. There's so much rubbish on social media that says, here's the latest and this is going to work. And I tell all of my clients not to bother with social media other than LinkedIn, because when you provide a service, when you're building up trust, you cannot sell trust through Instagram Reels or Facebook or whatever. So I would probably say to my younger self, just stay off it. Don't worry about it. Particularly as well, because if you post something derogatory, negative, photos of you with a hangover, photos of you doing something stupid, somebody is going to find it. Exactly. It might be in 10 years' time, because it's still going to be there. It's very, very difficult to get rid of it. So yeah, just treat social media, give it a wide berth, basically.
It's interesting. We share that philosophy. I'm the same with my clients. I say the same thing. In services, it's a relationship business, and the relationships don't happen by posting on social media. It's not the fastest way to get a client, for sure.
And it goes back to what you and I were talking about earlier, which is about trust and relationships. And exactly. that's what marketing is about, really. It's about building trusting relationships. So.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for bringing your story to life today as we've been sharing it. Chantal, if anyone wants to find out how to get in touch with you for a speaking engagement, or perhaps even do your StandOut Strategies test or book, how might they find you?
Two ways. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Chantal Cornelius with my spelling in the UK. And actually, there aren't very many of us around the world. So come and find me on LinkedIn and say hello. And you can also find through my website, which is appletreeuk.com. There's a link on there where you can take the test, which is free. There's a link there if you want to buy the book. But yeah, come along and say hello. And if you have anyone listening has any questions about marketing or the StandOut Strategies, just do get in touch. I'm very happy to chat.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. It's been a delight. I appreciate
It's been great fun. Thank you, Michelle.
So welcome. We'll see you soon. Take care.